So, you two been chasing murderers in a minivan?
Yeah, he blew up my other car.
Yeah,
That's not what happened.
surprised me at all.
Literally what happened.
No, it's not. Why does your car go faster?
We belong together.
This doesn't happen here every day. I can't have two guys who look like they eat steroid pancakes. Into Beirut!
Detective, that is uncalled for.
Are you gaslighting us?
You want to tell me why the Yakuza want you dead?
You blew up my car.
I blew up their car and then it landed on yours. They just blew up your car.
You just struck.
Our father was murdered.
Was it hit and run?
I don't think so. Whoa. They tried to kill me.
Sword fight.
We belong together.
Well, this should be fun.
Yeah, I'm pumped. We gotta find out who killed him.
That doesn't want to be poked.
Take my word for it when I tell you that I'm the bear.
Ninjas on bikes.
That's talking more shooting.
We got fat.
Okay, split up. You guys look like The Rock screwed himself and had twins.
Welcome back to Cineplex. your ultimate destination for deep dives into the most thrilling and action-packed movies hitting the big screen. Today, we're breaking down The Wrecking Crew, 2026, a high-octane action thriller that delivers explosive stunts, razor-sharp teamwork, and relentless adrenaline from start to finish, packed with pulse-pounding sequences and a gripping story of loyalty and betrayal. The Wrecking Crew takes you on a wild ride through the dangerous world of elite operatives who live on the edge, set against a backdrop of global espionage and high-stakes missions. The Wrecking Crew, 2026, follows a skilled team of specialists brought together to tackle impossible jobs where failure is not an option. The film blends intense action choreography, cutting-edge technology, and complex character dynamics to create a cinematic experience that keeps viewers on the edge of their seats. In this video on Cineplex, we'll dive into the film's plot, standout performances, thrilling set pieces, and what sets it apart in the crowded action genre. So buckle up and get ready for The Wrecking Crew. Every second counts and every move could be your last. Negation Thyn. The Wrecking Crew, released in 2026, is an American buddy cop action comedy film that blends high-energy action sequences with sharp comedic elements. Directed by Ángel Manuel Soto, known for his dynamic storytelling style, the film is brought to life through a screenplay written by Jonathan Tropper, who expertly balances humor with intense action. The cast features a strong ensemble of talented actors, headlined by Jason Momoa and Bautista, both of whom bring a commanding presence and natural chemistry to their roles. Supporting them are notable actors including Claes Bang, Tamara Morrison, Jacob Batalon, Frankie Adams, Mavi, Stephen Root, and Morena Baccarin, each contributing depth and charisma to the story. Together, this diverse and skilled cast creates a vibrant and entertaining dynamic, making The Wrecking Crew a standout entry in the buddy cop genre for the year. The Wrecking Crew centers around two half-brothers who couldn't be more different in personality and approach to life. One is a loose cannon cop, known for his unpredictable and often reckless methods that frequently put him at odds with his colleagues. The other is a disciplined and highly trained Navy SEAL, whose precision, control, and tactical expertise contrast sharply with his brother's impulsive nature. Despite their stark differences, the brothers are forced to put aside their personal conflicts and join forces when they uncover a deep and dangerous conspiracy linked to the mysterious murder of their father. Set against the vibrant and picturesque backdrop of Hawaii, the brothers navigate a complex web of secrets and threats as they race against time to uncover the truth behind their father's death. Along the way, they must learn to trust each other, combining their unique skills and strengths in a high-stakes battle for justice and redemption. The cast of The Wrecking Crew features a talented and diverse lineup of actors who bring depth and personality to their respective roles. Jason Momoa stars as Johnny Hale, the unpredictable and fierce loose cannon cop whose rough edges and impulsive style make him a force to be reckoned with. Opposite him is Bautista as James Hale, Johnny's half-brother and a disciplined Navy SEAL whose calm, strategic mindset sharply contrasts with Johnny's wild nature. Claes Bang portrays Marcus Robichaud, a key figure likely tied to the central conspiracy, while Tamara Morrison plays Governor Peter Mayhew, a powerful political presence within the story. Adding to the mix, Jacob Batalon takes on the role of Pika, providing both wit and heart, while Frankie Adams brings life to Hanani Nani Palakiko, a character who connects closely with the Hawaiian setting and culture. Internationally renowned musician and actor Mavi appears as Nakamura, adding a distinctive edge to the cast. Veteran actor Stephen Root plays Detective Sergeant Carl Rennert, contributing his signature grounded and compelling presence. Morena Baccarin stars as Valentina, a mysterious figure whose motives intertwine with the brothers' quest. Supporting roles include Maya Keloa as Lonnie, Lydia Peckham as Monica Robichaud, Stephen as Akihiko, Mark Arblack as Monty, David Hikili Kenui Bell as Alakai, Roy Imta Fox as Layla Hale, Branscombe Richmond as Mr. K, and Joshua Tuivavalagi as Kai. Together, this ensemble brings a rich mix of personalities, cultural backgrounds, and acting styles, creating a vibrant and engaging world around the central narrative of family, betrayal, and justice in Hawaii. The production of The Wrecking Crew has an interesting history marked by competitive interest and several key creative shifts. The film is produced by Jeffrey Fierson under the banner of Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer, MGM, a major studio that secured the project after winning a highly competitive four-way bidding war in 2021. The story originated from a collaborative idea developed by Jonathan Tropper, who also wrote the screenplay, alongside lead actors Jason Momoa and Dave Bautista, highlighting the personal investment and creative input from its principal stars. Initially, acclaimed director David Leitch was attached to helm the project, and early plans included scouting filming locations in Hawaii to capture the authentic and visually stunning backdrop crucial to the story. However, this initial version of the film faced delays and was eventually shelved due to Leitch's scheduling conflicts, particularly with his commitment to directing The Fall Guy. The project was revitalized in August 2023 when Ángel Manuel Soto, known for his fresh and dynamic directing style, officially came on board as director, bringing new energy and vision to the film's production as it moved forward into filming and completion. Jason Momoa and Dave Bautista were connected to The Wrecking Crew as early as 2021, even before the intense bidding war for the project, which was ultimately won by Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer, MGM. Their involvement was officially confirmed in August 2023, solidifying their roles as the film's leads. The cast expanded significantly in August 2024, with notable additions including Claes Bang, Tamara Morrison, Jacob Batalon, Frankie Adams, Mavi, and Stephen Root, each bringing their unique talents and experience to the production. The following month, Morena Baccarin joined the ensemble, along with Lydia Peckham, Roy Imta Fox, and Branscombe Richmond, further enriching the film's diverse and dynamic cast. The movie also holds special significance as the final acting role of David Hikili Kenui Bell, who tragically passed away on June 12, 2025. Bell's role in this film marked only his second appearance on screen, following his debut in the live-action remake of Lilo Stitch, which also featured fellow cast member Maya Keloa. Principal photography for The Wrecking Crew commenced on October 5, 2024, with filming taking place across two stunning locations, the lush, tropical landscapes of Hawaii and the varied terrains of New Zealand. These locations were chosen to authentically capture the film's vibrant setting and intense action sequences, contributing to the overall immersive experience. The film's musical score was composed by Bobby Krlick, who returned to collaborate once again with director Ángel Manuel Soto. This marked their second partnership following the critically noted Blue Beetle, with Krlick's evocative and dynamic compositions enhancing the mood and energy of The Wrecking Crew, underscoring both its action-packed scenes and comedic moments with a compelling auditory backdrop. The Wrecking Crew had its highly anticipated world premiere at the iconic Regal Times Square Theater in New York City on January 15, 2026, marking a significant event that brought together cast, crew, and fans eager to see the film's blend of action and comedy come to life on the big screen. Following this premiere, the film was made widely accessible through its release on Amazon Prime Video on January 28, allowing a global audience to experience the movie from the comfort of their homes and contributing to its growing popularity across streaming platforms. Critically, The Wrecking Crew received a generally positive reception. On Rotten Tomatoes, a well-known review aggregator, the film holds a solid approval rating of 78% based on 49 critic reviews. The consensus highlights the film's strengths by praising it as brawny and disarmingly charming, much like its two leading actors, Jason Momoa and Dave Bautista. Critics noted that while the storyline may be somewhat thin, the film compensates with vibrant, colorful pyrotechnics and a strong sense of attitude, delivering an entertaining experience that effectively combines humor and action. This balance of spectacle and charisma helped The Wrecking Crew carve out a distinct identity within the crowded buddy cop genre, appealing to both fans of explosive action sequences and those who appreciate sharp, playful banter. The Wrecking Crew successfully captures the feel of old-school action with fun characters and some awesome action scenes. It is let down by some CG, especially in the car chase, and it's maybe a bit too long, but this is still a fun ride. Plot, Estranged half-brothers Johnny and James reunite after their father's mysterious death. As they search for the truth, buried secrets reveal a conspiracy threatening to tear their family apart. Review: I didn't think people made movies like this anymore, and I must say it's nice to see an old-school buddy action movie like The Wrecking Crew. It would have been great to witness on the big screen, but seeing as the weather is so bad outside lately, I'm quite happy to watch this in the comfort of my own home. Dave Bautista and Jason Momoa are perfectly cast as two estranged brothers brought together after their father is killed. They have their own personal problems to work through while avoiding being killed by the Yakuza and whoever killer their dad. Filmed mostly in Hawaii, it's refreshing to see a film set in the sunshine again after so many movies with those ugly desaturation filters. The script is witty with Momoa and Bautista trading banter like it's the 80s again. They are an appealing duo, and I especially think Jason Momoa was born to be an action star with his huge build and larger-than-life personality. Bautista is more soft-spoken and they both play to their strengths. At 2 hours The Wrecking Crew is a tad long, but there really is some spectacular action here, especially in the finale. We get some fantastic fight scenes and epic bad guy deaths. So the writers clearly understand the genre. The car chase is the only letdown as it features noticeable CG and green screen. But aside from that, there are some real explosions too. The music score even features electric guitars, which just adds to the classic action feel. The ending leaves things open for a potential sequel, which I hope we get, as I just love these characters and would love to see them wreck some more bad guys in the future. Overall, The Wrecking Crew is clearly made by people who love old-school action and is a hugely entertaining throwback to classic buddy movies with the right amount of comedy, family drama and kick-ass action to be one of the best made for streaming movies for some time, to an old-school action spectacular with some bickering buddy humor and emotional family drama on the side. The Wrecking Crew may not win points for originality, but has the energy, professionalism and star power to please genre fans. The eagerly awaited teaming of Dave Bautista and Jason Momoa as estranged half-brothers investigating their father's death in Hawaii is bound to race up the viewing charts when it launches January 28 on Prime Video. You only have to look at the thousands of comments on various internet and social media pages to get an idea of how big a deal this pairing of Aquaman and Drax the Destroyer is in genre fan circles. In its own very particular way, the level of anticipation and excitement is reminiscent of that surrounding the historic first screen-sharing teaming of Robert De Niro and Al Pacino in Michael Mann's Heat for one gloriously quiet scene, no less. While Momoa and Bautista appeared together as warrior brothers in Apple's dystopian sci-fi series C, this project, directed by Ángel Manuel Soto, Blue Beetle, is their first tailor-made co-starring vehicle and is a major action movie event, to be sure. As such, The Wrecking Crew is sure to generate discussion about it bypassing cinemas and going direct to streaming. In lead-up publicity, Momoa has made much of the very yin and yang screen dynamic between him and Buddy Bautista. It's an accurate comment and helps the duo make a pretty good stab at playing half-brothers who haven't spoken in 20 years. When we meet James Hale, Bautista, he's an ultra-disciplined U.S. Navy SEAL commander with an analytical mind who lives in a nice but not too expensive-looking beachfront house with loving wife Layla, Roy Fox, bubbly young daughter Lonnie, Maya Keloa, Lilo Stitch, and son Kai, Joshua Tuivasa-Villagi, a teen who calls his father Sir. A committed husband and father, but stitched up emotionally when it comes to events in his family's distant past. James is the polar opposite of Johnny, Momoa, a wayward police detective in Oklahoma who gets around in biker leathers and has a failing relationship with fed-up partner Valentina. Morena Baccarin, good in a largely thankless role, this dude child carries himself like a 1970s rock star looking for a hotel room to trash, but with that twinkle in his eye, deep down heart of gold and desire to win back Valentina. Viewers will soon warm to this big hairy mountain of a man who clearly just needs a family-related emotional crisis to bring out the best in him. Momoa seals the audience support deal early in a terrific fight sequence. At home alone and dressed only in a lava traditional wrap skirt, Johnny manages to guzzle down a beer and crack zingy one-liners while dispatching a quartet of Yakuza goons who've come looking for a package sent to him by his father, Walter, Brian Klana. a private detective in Hawaii who's had no other contact with Johnny for years. Walter's just been killed in a highly suspicious hit-and-run accident in downtown Kalihi, Honolulu. The crux of the movie is how well Bautista and Momoa fire off each other once Johnny returns to his roots in Hawaii for the funeral and reconnects with the half-brother he's had no interest in seeing or talking to for years. The action stars may not be great actors in the classical sense, but they are more than competent and acquit themselves well as James and Johnny get down to the business of confronting the painful details of how they came to be half-brothers while also discovering, to no surprise, their father's death was no accident. With the help of Walter's offsider, Pika, Jacob Batalon, giving solid service in the comic sidekick role, the duo uncover shady property plans affecting indigenous Hawaiian communities. With a little more ease than should be the case and at the expense of gripping mystery taking shape, James and Johnny piece together a conspiracy involving local mobsters and yakuza led by coke-snorting assassin Nakamura, multi-talented Japanese artist Mavi. Top dog in this nefarious network is Marcus Robichaud, a shifty English-accented businessman played with enjoyable relish by Claes Bang, the Square, the Northman. Much of the comedy in this action comedy arrives via barbed exchanges between the constantly bickering James and Johnny. Many of them are amusing enough to get chuckles and the odd big laugh, but a little more wit amongst the throwaway put-downs would have been welcome. When the tempo calms down for genuine soul-searching and truth-telling, the results may not be dramatically scintillating, but there is a blunt and convincing force that registers between these two big beefy half-brothers who aren't used to expressing their feelings. The dialogue is a little wobbly at times. Do James and Johnny really have to say "I'm fucking sorry" and "I'm fucking angry" and "fucking this, that and everything" during their big slugfest in the mud when everything is finally laid out bare? But the sincerity and commitment of the stars sees things through. These interludes are like ballads in between heavy power chord tunes at a stadium rock concert, an experience somewhat akin to watching a big loud action movie such as this. They serve a purpose and do add to the overall experience, but what we're here for primarily are those thumping numbers that get the adrenaline pumping. And so it goes here, with many and varied set pieces that are mounted on a large scale and impressively executed. Among them is an extended highway chase featuring a helicopter and assassins on motorcycles, ninjas on bikes, and a car crash pile-up involving flipping, flying and exploding vehicles. To complement Momoa's opening Yakuza Smackdown spectacular, Bautista pulls off a fine impossible odds victory, and homage to Park Chan-wook's Oldboy, when confronted by hordes of assassins in a narrow passage in Robichaud's compound during the lengthy and bloody finale. The film certainly earns its MPAR rating with graphic violence that carries a rather nasty tone at times and can sit a little uncomfortably alongside the film's comic and family drama elements. Nicely shot in Hawaii and New Zealand locations standing in for Hawaii, the film is well served by the sharp editing of Mike McCusker, Walk the Line and an Oscar win for Ford v Ferrari, and its strong casting choices. Sure, this is Bautista and Momoa's show, but it also has good turns from Fox as James' wife, whose profession as a child psychologist comes in handy when dealing with her hubby and Johnny. Stephen Root is on the money in the time-honored role of the local detective who chews these guys out for treading on his turf, and Frankie Adams, 1000 Ropes, brings metal to her role as a member of James and Johnny's family who works for the governor of Hawaii. Third billed Tamara Morrison, who has little to do. Though she only has a few lines, it's worth noting that youngster Maya Keloa scores arguably the film's funniest moment with her character's hilariously natural reaction to Johnny waking up on a sofa and discovering the braid she has put in his hair while he was asleep. With a catchy multifunction pop culture title that brings to mind the Marvel Comics supervillain team, a celebrated group of session musicians, and the 1968 Matt Helm spy spoof that featured Sharon Tate and received poignant reference in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, this Wrecking Crew is, perhaps most importantly, an example of truth in movie advertising. What you see in the key art and the first look impression you get from the teaser and trailers is a clear and accurate indicator of what you'll get in the film, and for many action movie fans that'll do just fine. At the Wrecking Crew review, Jason Momoa and Dave Bautista play estranged half-brothers with issues reviewed online in Sydney, January 25, 2026. MPA rating, R. Running time, 122 minutes. 3. The abundantly muscled action stars are estranged siblings avenging their father in this enjoyable action comedy throwback. Here is a straight-to-streaming action thriller comedy that is a throwback to the kind of pulpy stupid fun fare that minted money back in the 80s and 90s. The presence of a Phil Collins banger on the soundtrack and a reference to Jean-Claude Van Damme martels. One assumes the target audience are males of all ages with a bloodlust for highly choreographed casual violence and stunts interspersed with quips. As such, it gets the job done, plus it throws in the bells and whistles you'd expect, such as fireballs erupting in the background as characters flee the scene, scads of civilians getting killed along the way while evoking not a drop of regret from the protagonists, and estranged siblings getting in touch with their feelings about their errant, recently deceased father, and learning lessons about love along the way. Yes, you read that last bit right, because The Wrecking Crew offers a mildly enlightened, post-therapy 2020 spin on the genre, going so far as to give one of the main characters a child psychologist wife, Royamta Fox, who is ready to diagnose emotional dysfunction when the script requires. Otherwise, the action is dominated by Dave Bautista and Jason Momoa, playing excessively muscled, abundantly inked, initially estranged half-brothers James and Johnny, who spend the film trying to work out who killed their father Walter, Brian Clona, in a hit-and-run incident. James is the one with the child psychologist wife. He trains Marines and is a disciplined, solid citizen only slightly simmering with rage. Johnny, an Oklahoma-based cop, is more flamboyantly booze-sozzled, roistering and irresponsible, a classic younger brother according to all those TikTok videos about sibling birth order. Walter's death reunites them in their home state of Hawaii, which gets showcased in an especially flattering way with plenty of pretty location photography and drone shots. At the same time, the script, by Jonathan Tropper, who wrote and show-ran the recent TV series Your Friends and Neighbors, which is slightly more interesting than it needed to be, acknowledges that there's plenty of corruption in paradise, with various gangster groups and corrupt figures keen to exploit the island's beauty for their own interests. The most obviously nefarious character is a rich businessman named Robichaud, whose French name obviously hints at a feed monstrosity. He is played by art house stud muffin Glaze Bang, the Square, projecting cruelty just by affecting a British accent and wearing a top knot. The final big boss banter between him and Momoa is a gas, as is the chemistry between Momoa and Bautista, two lovable lugs who clearly like each other. The whole package is an easily digested guilty pleasure. The Wrecking Crew is on Prime from 28 January. For not to be confused with the 1968 Dean Martin Mad Helm spy film The Wrecking Crew, or the 2000 Ice-T Wrecking Crew, or even the 2008 musical documentary The Wrecking Crew. This first big teaming of Jason Momoa, Aquaman, and Dave Bautista, Guardians of the Galaxy, may be the truest use of that movie title yet, as based on the violent action scale these two superstars of the genre wreck everything in sight, and that includes each other. It is a wonder that Amazon MGM Studios tailored this action comedy for the small screen. It starts streaming on Prime Video on Wednesday, rather than an IMAX attraction where the numerous and impressive over-the-top fights and chases would get maximum traction. If it is anything at all, this is big, a battle of the brawn with beautiful Hawaiian scenery counteracting the bloody blows, of which there are many. Seeing this all play out, you have to wonder why it took this long to get these two guys together, but it is undoubtedly an entertaining pairing for genre fans. And both Momoa and Bautista deliver what's expected today and then some. When we meet cop Johnny Hale, Momoa, he is in the midst of a breakup with his longtime girlfriend Valentine, Morena Baccarin, who has had enough. He is unhappy about this, but about to get unhappier when a couple of goons from the Japanese Yakuza arrive demanding a box supposedly sent to him by his now dead father Walter. He doesn't know what they are talking about but gets into a major, uber-violent brawl with both of them, dispatching them as only he can do with gut-wrenching precision, having not seen his estranged brother James, Bautista, in 10 years, or even venturing back to Hawaii in 20 years. He reluctantly, really, goes back home for their father's funeral. Johnny, however, has another reason, as he believes his father was a victim of a major crime group, not the accidental traffic death the family believed. He is still haunted by the fact he never could catch the murderer of his mother, so this is make-up time. Unfortunately, he has to deal with his ex-Navy SEAL brother, and they are at odds the minute he gets there. Soon, however, they find they need a way to get along, and the mayhem begins with several more fights of every stripe until the pair completely loses it altogether and, in the rain no less, go at it, nearly knocking each other out. This is where they lay out all their personal grievances using their fists, and I have to say it's fun to watch. Still, they need each other for the greater cause of solving the mystery of their father's death, and more importantly the larger looming political scandal this is all leading to, including the introduction of our chief villain, Marcus Robichaud, Clay's Bang, who has big plans beyond the death of Walter and will stop at nothing to achieve his goals in Hawaii. To get to him you have to get through his personal army, but hey, no problem. Before we come to the big finale and ultimate destruction derby, Johnny and James welcome Johnny's ex Valentina to Hawaii, where she delivers some of his belongings but plans to go right back after a day on the beach. In just minutes on the highway though, along with the brothers and friend Pika, Jacob Batalon, they all get involved in the single best, and most absurd, action set piece of the entire film, with a killer helicopter swirling above the traffic, guns blazing from out of it. They must avoid getting blasted to death, running into every other car and surviving the wildest chase of January movies, no doubt. It is a dazzling piece of stunt coordination and gives truth to the film's title before it ends. Jonathan Tropper's screenplay hits all the right notes for this sort of thing, even eliciting genuinely emotional moments from Bautista and especially Momoa. Danish star Bang seems to having a grand time playing the I want it all villain of the piece and is amusing to watch. Tropper is an interesting screenwriting choice for this assignment, since some of his more cerebral past films like This Is Where I Leave You and Kodachrome don't prepare us for this body-slamming work, but he is a versatile guy. Director Ángel Manuel Soto, Blue Beetle, proves he can handle the heavy action lifts, as well as giving each of his two stars the right balance and screen time to make fans satisfied. Both stars are in their sweet spot with this material and manage to handle not just the huge action quotient here but also make it believable that in the end Johnny and James are just family, hale and hearty. Producers are Matt Reeves, Lynn Harris, Jeff Firesen, Bautista and Momoa. Title: The Wrecking Crew. Distributor: Amazon MGM Studios. Release date: January 28, 2026. Streaming on Prime Video. Director: Ángel Manuel Soto. Screenwriter: Jonathan Tropper. Cast: Dave Bautista, Jason Momoa, Clay's Bang, Tamara Morrison, Jacob Batalon, Frankie Adams, Mavi, Stephen Root, Morena Baccarin, Lydia Peckham, Roy Imda Fox, Branscombe Richmond, Maya Keloa, Joshua Tuivavalogi. 5. When I realized that Ángel Manuel Soto, Blue Beetle, was going to direct a film starring Jason Momoa, Aquaman, and Dave Bautista, Dune, Part 2, playing half-brothers, my expectations immediately adjusted to something very specific: pure, unadulterated fun. I wasn't expecting a complex work of art or a script that challenged the conventions of modern cinema, but rather 2 hours of escapist entertainment, driven by the undeniable charisma of its leads. Fortunately, The Wrecking Crew fulfills that basic promise, even if it stumbles into the usual traps of movies destined for streaming. Directed by Soto and written by Jonathan Tropper, This Is Where I Leave You, the story follows two estranged half-brothers, Johnny, Momoa, and James, Bautista, who are forced to reunite after their father's mysterious death. Johnny is the rebellious and chaotic brother, a cop who plays by his own rules, while James is a disciplined and stoic Navy SEAL. Together, in the vibrant setting of Hawaii, they try to unravel a conspiracy involving family secrets and criminal organizations, testing the limits of their mutual patience and loyalty. From their first moment together, it's evident that the chemistry between Momoa and Bautista is the soul of the project. There's a nostalgic 80s buddy cop vibe permeating the entire narrative, where the Wrecking Crew never takes itself too seriously. Momoa, in particular, shines brightly as the badass brother who faces danger with lightness and humor, contrasting perfectly with Bautista's almost unshakable seriousness. The banter between them is genuinely funny, full of effective one-liners and moments of physical comedy that take advantage of the actor's massive stature. It's this dynamic, also supported by solid interactions with Morena Baccarin, Deadpool, and Jacob Batalon, Spider-Man, No Way Home, that kept me invested, even when the plot becomes too familiar. The action is, for the most part, quite competent and clearly oriented towards stunt work, which is always praiseworthy. The Wrecking Crew opens with a long and beautifully choreographed sequence, where Momoa performs much of the fighting, establishing a tone of visceral physical entertainment. Soto makes a notable effort to shoot in long takes even during car chases trying to create an immersive atmosphere. However, it's interesting to reflect on how action cinema has evolved in the last decade. 10 years ago, a film like this would have been considered innovative for a streaming release that doesn't have much going for it besides the cast. However, the generic standard of action has risen so much that what we see here, while very good, no longer impresses in the same way. The proof of this saturation is the obligatory hallway fight sequence. What was once an exciting novelty in movies like Oldboy, The Raid, or John Wick has now become a commonplace trope that the Wrecking Crew tries to emulate with a continuous lateral shot. Unfortunately, this ends up being the least exciting sequence of the film, not because the choreography is bad, quite the opposite, but because it brings nothing new to the specific set piece and feels strangely slow. Furthermore, it's triggered by a character decision completely devoid of sense, which diminishes its impact. Personally, I much preferred the one versus many fights scattered throughout the movie, filmed with the camera closer to the action. Those moments were intense, brutal, and full of creative executions that really raised adrenaline levels. Narratively, we face a classic case of an algorithm flick. The story is so formulaic that it's possible to predict every single scene within the first 5 minutes. The characters' motivations are extremely shallow, limited to the basic arc of estranged brothers going through the process of forgiveness, redemption, and, finally, bonding. The Wrecking Crew tries to pretend it's more intricate than it actually is, introducing gangs and kung fu cliché copyright tests that serve only as background noise for the action. It feels like the project was engineered by a studio to fill demographic requirements, rather than born from the singular creative vision of a screenwriter or filmmaker. This feeling of artificiality extends to the use of visual effects. Although the hand-to-hand action is the strong point, the Wrecking Crew insists on a couple of sequences that rely too much on CGI, like a highway chase that looks visually out of place and features effects of rather dubious quality. The biggest issue isn't even the fact that the VFX aren't up to par, but rather their redundancy. The physical combat was more than enough to sustain the film. These digital additions only serve to extend a runtime that already feels bloated for the simple story it wants to tell. Thematically, there isn't much to grasp at, but the truth is that not every movie needs to be deep or award-worthy. The Wrecking Crew sets out to be an entertainment vehicle and, in that aspect, it meets the minimum requirements. I knew exactly what I was getting into, and I got the dose of fun I was looking for. Nothing more, nothing less. The Wrecking Crew is a competent action experience that survives thanks to that contagious energy and Ángel Manuel Soto's direction, which knows how to value physical spectacle, resulting in a film that, even if it doesn't reinvent the wheel, offers 2 hours of honest and amusing escapism. The technical execution of the action and the magnetism of Jason Momoa and Dave Bautista frequently collide with the soullessness of a shamelessly algorithmic script, but in the end, the protagonist's charisma ensures victory, proving that a good duo can carry even the most formulaic screenplay. The Wrecking Crew is a competent action experience that survives thanks to its protagonist's charisma and Ángel Manuel Soto's direction. 6 Story. After their father's mysterious death, estranged half-brothers Johnny and James come together to find out what really happened. Their search drags them into trouble, forcing them to rely on each other despite old tensions. Review. If a film stars 2 actors known more for action than acting range, you already know what kind of story to expect. The Wrecking Crew is not a film that wants your attention in a serious way. It wants your time, nothing more. This is a relaxed action comedy that brings Jason Momoa and Dave Bautista together, with their pairing itself being the film's biggest USP. The film understands that most viewers are not here for layered writing or emotional complexity. They're here to watch two larger-than-life men argue, fight, joke, and break things. Once you accept that basic idea, the film becomes easier to enjoy. It isn't trying to say anything new, and it only aims to keep you entertained for a couple of hours, and the film delivers on its promise. The plot revolves around half-brothers Johnny, Jason Momoa, and James, Dave Bautista, who couldn't be more different in temperament. Johnny lives loud and reacts first, thinks later, while James is disciplined, controlled, and shaped by his U.S. Navy background. The brothers have stayed apart for years, but their father's sudden and suspicious death forces them back into each other's lives. Robichaud, Clay's Bang, is eyeing Hawaii's real estate for his own gain, pushing plans to build casinos despite local resistance. When the brothers discover he is responsible for their father's death, their fight turns personal, and revenge becomes their only goal. What starts as a personal matter slowly turns into a messy situation involving yakuza, criminals, shady land deals, and people who underestimate how dangerous this reunion can be. Where The Wrecking Crew succeeds is in not overthinking itself. The film doesn't slow down to explain motivations in detail or dig deep into emotions. It keeps things light and simple. Surely, the writing is basic, and many scenes feel familiar. But that's not necessarily a flaw here. This film is more like comfort food action cinema. The pacing is uneven at times, and a few action sequences drag longer than required. But the film never becomes dull. The plot doesn't twist or surprise much, but it moves fast enough to keep things going. Its main job is to push the brothers from one confrontation to the next, and it does that without overcomplicating anything. The film rests entirely on the shoulders of Momoa and Bautista, and they deliver exactly what fans expect. Their chemistry feels natural and relaxed, like two actors who know how to play off each other without forcing it. Momoa brings his usual charm and reckless energy, leaning into Johnny's impulsive nature without overdoing it. Bautista provides balance, grounding James with a calm, restrained presence that keeps the film from becoming too chaotic. The contrast between them creates most of the film's humor and momentum. Morena Baccarin, as Momoa's love interest, exudes confidence in her role and is fun to watch, while Clay's Bang as Robichaud is passable as the film's antagonist. The Wrecking Crew works best when you don't expect it to be more than what it is. It's not memorable, it's not clever, and it's not emotionally strong, but as a time-pass entertainer, it does the job and checks most of the boxes. You'll enjoy parts of it while watching, laugh at a few situations, nod along during the action, and move on once it's over. If you go in without expectations and don't take it seriously, it becomes an easy, harmless watch carried by two stars who clearly know the film they're making. Users reviews upcoming movie 7 The Wrecking Crew, 2026, directed by Ángel Manuel Soto, starring Jason Momoa, Dave Bautista, Clay's Bang, Tamara Morrison, Jacob Batalon, Frankie Adams, Mavi, Stephen Root, Morena Baccarin, Lydia Peckham, Roy Fox, Branscombe Richmond, Maya Kello, David Hikili Kanui Bell, and Mike Edward. Synopsis: Estranged half-brothers Johnny and James reunite after their father's mysterious death. As they search for the truth, buried secrets reveal a conspiracy threatening to tear their family apart. At one point, foul-mouthed computer hacker sidekick Pika, Jacob Batalon, remarks that the leads, played by Dave Bautista and Jason Momoa, look like The Rock screwed himself and had twins. This lazy attempt at a joke is wild for several reasons. For starters, and this is said with no disrespect, it would make more sense directed at Jacob Batalon himself. It is also only one of several oddly placed jokes about past WWE legends. Moreover, the terrible insult feels more like director Ángel Manuel Soto's equally uninspired casting reasoning, as if he were saying to himself, "Those guys look alike, Let's make a vulgar buddy action comedy set in Hawaii using that. I have put more thought into making sense of that joke than anyone did while making The Wrecking Crew. Everything about the film, written by Jonathan Tropper, seems to have begun and certainly never evolved from that already simplistic idea that, while admittedly novel, is nowhere near enough to sustain 2 hours of generic plotting, CGI sludge, and the occasional satisfying fight scene. James, Bautista, and Johnny, Momoa, are estranged half-brothers, with the suspicious death of their father paving the way to a series of events that call the latter home to Hawaii, a place he abandoned following being unable to solve his mom's murder, currently residing in Oklahoma, and fighting with his on and off partner, Valentina, Morena Baccarin. Meanwhile, the former leads a traditional, idyllic family life while serving as a strict military commander training water cadets. What more is to say that they incessantly bicker while finding themselves pushed into a rabbit hole of corruption involving the impending building of a casino on heritage land, Yakuza gangster reinforcements that want them dead, and the shady dealings between notable high-power figures here. Their only clue is a USB drive entrusted to Johnny and some files their father was trying to have Pika hack before his mysterious death, raising more questions than answers that the police department doesn't seem too interested in looking into. Apparently, the crime occurred in a dead zone, out of range of all traffic cams and security footage, mismatched with James as the common reasonable one who wants to lay low, and Johnny as the angry loose cannon who, while never close to his father, feels as if he is obligated to solve what happened as a form of redemption for never finding cathartic justice over his mom's murder. This also means that most of the humor is bestowed upon Johnny, who does everything from trying to sword fight with his genitalia to making endless heavyset jokes about Pika to blatantly racist gestures mocking Asian culture and famous celebrities such as Jackie Chan. When the character momentarily acknowledges and apologizes for saying something racist, it comes across as hollow, since the filmmakers clearly intend for it to land with audiences as funny. Nearly all of the jokes here are lazy more than anything, which is not helped by a grating performance from Jason Momoa, who is starting to play the same character in every movie now. Across this unwieldy 2-hour running time that trudges through predictable plotting are a couple of bright spots, namely, the chemistry between Dave Bautista and Jason Momoa is amusing and even leads to a crowd-pleasing physical fight between them, sorting out their issues the good old-fashioned way. And while some of the car chases and more chaotic action sequences are filled with ghastly visual effects, the smaller-scale melee fights are mildly ambitious, at one point trying to recreate the beloved hallway battle from Oldboy, albeit with considerably less energy and bodies. The Hawaii setting is also a pleasant reprieve from the usual Los Angeles/Boston/New York familiarity. Mostly, though, all the Wrecking Crew does is repeatedly damage itself, destined to be another forgotten big-budget waste of algorithmic streaming space. Flickering myth rating a film, A.A./movie. A.A. Robert Codgerate review by John Donis. There is a brash confidence to the Wrecking Crew that feels almost old-fashioned in the best way. This is a loud, violent, self-aware buddy cop action comedy that knows exactly which buttons it wants to press and hammers them with real enthusiasm. Directed by Ángel Manuel Soto, the film throws subtlety out of the window early on and commits fully to being a crowd-pleasing blast of bruising action, broad humor and clashing personalities. The story centers on estranged half-brothers Johnny Hale and James Hale. Johnny, played by Jason Momoa, is a loose cannon cop working on a reservation in Oklahoma. James, played by Dave Bautista, is a disciplined Navy SEAL living in Hawaii. Their uneasy reunion is triggered by the death of their father Walter, a private investigator whose supposed hit-and-run quickly proves to be something far more sinister once Yakuza enforcers start turning up uninvited. From there, the brothers return to Hawaii for the funeral and begin pulling at threads that reveal a conspiracy with personal stakes and long-buried family resentments. What really sells the film is the chemistry between Momoa and Bautista. The contrast is familiar but effective. Momoa leans into the chaotic charm of Johnny, delivering most of the film's funniest lines and clearly enjoying himself. Bautista plays James as the tightly wounded straight man, all discipline and suppressed frustration. When the two are sharing the screen, The film finally hits its stride. Their bickering, mismatched methods and grudging respect give the action real momentum, recalling the spirit of Lethal Weapon without pretending to reinvent that wheel. The supporting cast helps keep things lively. Stephen Root is on solid form as Detective Rennert, the perpetually exasperated superior who knows he has lost control of the situation. Jacob Batalon's Pika, Walter's assistant, grows into a surprisingly effective sidekick with several strong comedic moments. Frankie Adams and Maya Keloa do their best to ground the family drama as cousin Hanani and James' wife Lonnie, while Temuera Morrison brings an easy authority as the governor of Hawaii and a trusted family friend. And a special mention to Morena Baccarin as Valentina, the other half of Johnny Hale. Soto makes excellent use of the Hawaiian setting. The cinematography gives the film a bright, sun-drenched look that contrasts nicely with its violent streak. Explosive set pieces are staged with clarity and energy, and the action rarely feels sluggish. When the film is firing on all cylinders, it becomes a relentless ride that barely pauses for breath. That said, the cracks are hard to ignore. At 2 hours, The Wrecking Crew feels a little too long for what it is trying to do. The script is deeply formulaic and rarely surprising, hitting familiar beats almost on schedule. For an action comedy, some of the strongest jokes are spaced too far apart, and the humor does not always land with the consistency it should. It is also a missed opportunity that Bautista is not given more genuinely funny material, as his comic timing has proven strong elsewhere. Despite those flaws, the film's sheer energy carries it a long way. It embraces its own excess, leans into its central pairing, and delivers exactly the kind of noisy, unapologetic entertainment it promises. The Wrecking Crew might not be particularly original, but it scratches a very specific itch within the buddy cop genre and does so with style. The Wrecking Crew is a fun, if slightly overlong action comedy with some strong fight scenes, striking use of its Hawaiian backdrop, and a dependable supporting cast. It does not break new ground, but it does remind you why this formula worked so well in the first place. I score The Wrecking Crew a solid 8 out of 10. 9 big guys beating bad guys, and occasionally each other, to a pulp is the basic idea behind the new Prime Video action movie starring Dave Bautista and Jason Momoa. In the unimaginatively titled The Wrecking Crew, not to be confused with the 2008 music doc or the cheesy 1968 Dean Martin movie, the two oversized, testosterone-laden actors play estranged half-brothers who team up to investigate their father's mysterious hit-and-run death in the scenic environs of Honolulu. Yes, it's the sort of buddy cop action comedy that was once a multiplex staple but is now largely relegated to streaming. Although this Prime Video offering proves a lot more entertaining than the Chris Pratt starrer Mercy that was just released in theaters, The Wrecking Crew doesn't set out to reinvent the formula, but rather luxuriate in it. All of the familiar tropes are there, from the numerous pop songs peppering the action, including one by Phil Collins, just to remind you of Miami Vice, to the profane banter between the two main characters to the endless fights, shootouts and chases to the colorful villain. Regarding the last, he's deliciously named Marcus Robichaud and played by Claes Bang sporting a top knot. Oh, and let's not forget the perpetually aggrieved police superior, played by Stephen Root, who delivers lines like "Consider this your final warning," or the hapless sidekick, Jacob Batalon of the Tom Holland Spider-Man films, who is usually the brunt of the joke. Release date, Wednesday, January 28th. Cast, Dave Bautista, Jason Momoa, Claes Bang, Temuera Morrison, Jacob Batalon, Frankie Adams, Mavi, Stephen Root, Morena Baccarin, Lydia Peckham, Roy Imda Fox, Branscombe Richmond, Maya Keloa, Joshua Tuivavilag. Director, Ángel Manuel Soto. Screenwriter, Jonathan Tropper. Rated R, 2 hours 2 minutes. Movies like this depend almost entirely on chemistry between the co-stars, and fortunately Bautista and Momoa have plenty of it. The real-life friends instigated the project and serve as producers, with their obvious glee in playing off each other adding greatly to the enjoyment. Much like Riggs and Murtaugh in Lethal Weapon and Jack and Reggie in 48 HRS, their characters' personalities and styles are very different. Bautista's straight-laced, Laconic James is a family man first seen underwater training Navy SEALs how to hold their breath. Momoa's irresponsible, endlessly chatty Johnny is first seen being dumped by his long-suffering girlfriend Valentina, Morena Baccarin, and is the kind of guy who quaffs a beer even while fighting off a gang of murderous Yakuza. Why Yakuza, you may ask? In a film set largely in Hawaii, there's not much point providing an explanation, since the murder mystery is the least interesting aspect of the screenplay by Jonathan Tropper, the upcoming Star Wars, Starfighter. Rather, it's merely an impetus for an increasingly bonkers series of action set pieces, the most spectacular of which is an over-the-top highway chase involving cars, helicopters and plenty of bodies propelled across the screen in a sequence that clearly had the stunt people working overtime. Needless to say, James and Johnny get into it as well, engaging in a knockdown, drag-out fight that results not only in numerous bruises and contusions but also a heartfelt emotional epiphany. It's not the film's only attempt at psychological depth, with Johnny being haunted by the fact that his mother's murder was never solved. But you don't watch these sorts of movies for profound insights. Rather, you watch them for the action, and director Ángel Manuel Soto, Charm City Kings, Blue Beetle, provides more than enough to satisfy genre enthusiasts. And for the quippy dialogue, most of it here delivered by Momoa and often referencing other action stars. "Oh, it's Fat John Cena," Johnny comments after spotting one bad guy. And during a fight scene with the arch-villain who unleashes some fierce body kicks, he taunts, "Fuck you, Van Damme." Although the superb New Zealand actor Temuera Morrison, once were warriors, the Book of Boba Fett, is on hand to lend some gravitas to the proceedings. The Wrecking Crew is the sort of fun but forgettable action movie trifle that at least knows which side its popcorn is buttered. 10. The Wrecking Crew, directed by Ángel Manuel Soto, Blue Beetle, thinks it's really funny. Like, really, really funny. And to be sure, the script, written by Jonathan Tropper, Warrior, packs in a lot of quips, references, fat jokes, gay jokes, and hellaciously grotesque violence to elicit some reaction. But when there's no laughter, only tired eye rolls and the fatigued slump of a writer who tries to benefit from not sitting through this level of junk as best she can, there's a chance you've missed the mark. Big dumb action is great. We are in desperate, dire need of more big, dumb action that transports us out of this godforsaken place. And when you see Dave Bautista and Jason Momoa as the stars in an action-packed Hawaii set flick, there's the intrinsic understanding that these two charismatic stars are going to generate enough of that charm to make any sloppy script worth grinding your teeth through. Unfortunately, even they're misused so much that you have to wonder if, perhaps, they've fared better swapping roles. Bautista and Momoa play James and Johnny Hale, two half-brothers with a tumultuous history that has left them estranged. Johnny is a cop, while James is a Navy SEAL, both disciplined enough to somewhat reasonably be able to fit into the battle spectacles gearing up for them, following the death of their father, which is staged like a hit-and-run with clearly something more nefarious behind it. The two are forced to reunite and work together to get to the truth. The Wrecking Crew can't decide what kind of film it wants to be. There's plenty more too, especially when it comes to Johnny, as there are tidbits about his biological mother's death and how he believed it too was a murder, only to be ostracized for his individual investigation. There's also his put-upon girlfriend, Valentina, Morena Baccarin, who enters the plot with convenience to this Tory precision. And then there's the unresolved feelings of betrayal that Johnny feels regarding James, who he believes needed to step up for him as he was processing his mother's death. It's a lot, especially for a film that is billing itself as an action comedy. What's worse is that it's these more somber threads that actually work. Johnny calling Pika, Jacob Batalon, a fat Jackie Chan is lazy and a throwback to the mid-aughts, which we should never return to. But Johnny and James beating the snot out of each other to rid themselves of their manly pain. Great. Chef's kiss. It all boils down to a seeming misunderstanding of what the actors at the center do best. Jason Momoa has all the makings of an action star. He's charismatic, shows off some fluid yet imposing physicality, and maintains the physique of a prototype leading man. Ever since he burst onto the scene with Game of Thrones, There's been a concerted effort to find out just where he fits in the cinematic landscape. Dave Bautista and Jason Momoa are engaging actors stuck with bad dialogue, and here they've landed on a bumbling jock who stumbles his way into being a boozy cop, with jokes. His first fight scene with a group of Yakuza assailants who've come to kill him is well choreographed and bursting with personality. Momoa embodies the gleeful, vengeful persona of Johnny as he literally whips himself around in a show of posturing bravado before tearing the attackers to bloody, gruesome pieces, literally. But anything beyond that is bogged down in tired dialogue and quips that seem crafted for curated content clips. There's depth in the story, and there's general intrigue at the start due to a colorful, immersive location for the characters to be defined by, as much as some of them, Johnny, is running from. And it's made worse by the fact that half of the two-hand array Bautista is given virtually nothing to do. Bautista, who, through his great work in films such as Guardians of the Galaxy, Blade Runner 2049, Dune, and more, has cemented himself as a worthy character actor. Sadly, he's stiff here in a way that points a finger more at an emotionally hollow and unnecessarily glib script. No one faces consequences, even as Johnny decimates any threats that come to him. And, ultimately, it's this mismatch of tones that really cements the fact that The Wrecking Crew has no intention of being a film that sticks around. Director Ángel Manuel Soto can't save a toneless and messy script. Like so much of the streaming service landfill, the film over-explains itself, refusing to land on any intention or narrative tone. It's an action flick with comedy, some drama, 2 stars, and an ensemble of recognizable-ish faces, with no actual stakes despite the incredulous body count. There is something here, buried beneath the discordance of glut and shallow writing. In attempting to be everything, you'll often walk away with a nothing picture. Due to this work on the charming Blue Beetle, we want to see Ángel Manuel Soto triumph, but more than anything, we want to see him get a picture that deserves his time, energy, and skill. The Wrecking Crew is loud, and bloody, and hints at greater thematic weight than it's able to actually muster. It has a solid director and 2 formidable stars when given characters suited to them. The script, however, and the foundation the story is built on, crumble early and never come back together. The Wrecking Crew is loud, and bloody, and hints at greater thematic weight than it's able actually to muster. The script, however, and the foundation the story is built on, crumble early and never come back together. 11 in this week's edition of Movie Reviews 2026. Prepare yourself for monkey madness and new horror, primate sci-fi shenanigans and Chris Pratt's actioner, mercy and criminal capers and Netflix's gritty Italian drama, The Big Fake. Plus, Jason Momoa and Dave Bautista team up for Prime Video's The Wrecking Crew. Oh, and if that wasn't enough, there's a rundown of recent releases, movie of the week, and all the usual fun and frolics you've come to expect from your favorite weekly review roundup. This is your favorite weekly review roundup, right? Great. Then without further ado, let's get into it. Now streaming a Broken Bar, The Big Fake, 2026. First up this week, it's over to Netflix for the Italian crime drama, The Big Fake, aka Il Falsario, directed by Stefano Lodovici, and starring Pietro Castellitto. The movie follows the story of a skilled artist who becomes a master forger. In the movie, it's the 1970s and talented artist Tony arrives in Rome determined to make a name for himself in the art world. However, his ambition to become the next great painter quickly falls by the wayside as he moves into the criminal underworld, and into dodgy dealings that bring trouble to his door. Slick, well acted, and relatively interesting, The Big Fake is a decent crime picture about one man's descent into the dark corners of the Italian crime scene. It begins with Tony agreeing to copy a few paintings, progresses with the forging of documents, and continues with Tony caught up in sticky situations that are almost impossible to get out of. Of course, Tony would have found himself in these, or similar, situations even if he didn't agree to copy the paintings, because the temptation to be rich and successful is too appealing. The movie makes it clear Tony isn't completely innocent, to ensure this isn't just a tale about a person choosing one bad decision, and this makes both his character and the story worth spending time on. Not that you wouldn't want to spend time on The Big Fake anyway, because as noted above it is relatively interesting and looks great. The only real problem is that it doesn't offer anything particularly new to the crime genre. But if you accept that you've seen this sort of thing before, and you have no issue with spending time in familiar territory, The Big Fake is an entertaining and engaging way to spend some time. It's nothing outstanding, and the story probably would have made for a better television show, but it's likable for what it is. In Cinemas A Broken Bar Primate, 2026. Over to the big screen now for the creature feature, Primate, directed and co-written by Johannes Roberts, and starring Johnny Sequoia, Troy Kotzer, and Jessica Alexander. Primate is a small-budget horror which centers its short, and very simply tale around a crazed chimpanzee. In the film, a family pet chimp named Ben is bitten by a rabid mongoose, catching rabies in the process. Ben then goes on a murderous rampage through a rather lovely family home, complete with swimming pool, bumping off teen fodder with careless abandon. That's the story in a monkey nut, and you'd be absolutely bananas to expect any more. However, if this already sounds like the sort of movie you could go apeshit for, then enjoy as you see fit. In essence, Primate is a midnight movie where character development and plot go out of the window. It's the sort of thing which you purposefully view late at night, when all you seek is a couple of scares. The runtime is a bump-friendly 89 minutes. The score by Adrian Johnston is fab, and somewhat reminiscent of early John Carpenter, and the 8 kill sequences are fairly brutal. There's a death within the first 3 minutes which is rather gruesome, and this is pretty much where the film operates moving forward. Chimp unleashes primate pandemonium, youngsters run for their lives, and so on and so on. It's certainly not the Citizen Kane of animal attack movies, but the story moves from chimpanzee to chimpanzee without any major problems. Okay, so Primate does lack substance, and it could be a stronger movie with more work, but it is fine for what it is. As long as you accept this as a paper-thin horror, where Bubbles a broken bar Ben simply goes off his rocker, you'll be alright with what's on offer. If Primate sounds like it is one for you, then it probably is, and if it doesn't then it isn't. That's all there is to it. In Cinemas A Broken Bar Mercy, 2026. Sticking with the cinema for this next movie, which is the futuristic sci-fi action thriller, Mercy, directed by Timur Bekmambetov and starring Chris Pratt and Rebecca Ferguson. The story focuses on an LA police detective on trail for murder, with just 90 minutes to prove his innocence. In the film, artificial intelligence oversees the courts. In this nightmarish reality, potential criminals are now presumed guilty of crimes, before being given a trial to prove they didn't do it. The latest criminal on trial is Detective Chris Raven. According to the iJudge, Chris is accused of killing his wife, and unless he can prove he didn't do it he will be executed. Given access to crime scene evidence, as well as any witnesses he requires, Chris sets out to find the real killer. But strapped to a courtroom chair with the clock ticking, the probability of Chris saving himself is getting rather slim. With an intriguing premise, and a 90-minute countdown, Mercy has the foundations for something interesting. The idea of I becoming judge, jury, and executioner is terrifying stuff, while the 90-minute countdown for Chris to prove his innocence adds a sense of urgency to the drama, especially as this is a 90-minute film. So, yeah, on paper it all sounds rather good, and to be fair, Mercy isn't terrible, and is entertaining enough for a wet Sunday afternoon. The problem is, it all feels rather cheap, with the majority of the action playing out as talking headshots between Pratt and Ferguson. While the poster for this film might depict Pratt taking to the streets with a firearm in hand, the reality is he spends the vast majority of the film sat on his ass looking directly at a camera. There is some action in Mercy, but don't expect huge scenes of spectacle. This is effectively a vocal police investigation, played out with Pratt and Ferguson going back and forth discussing clues against a green screen backdrop. Sure, both actors hit the required emotional beats, and do their best to push the story along, but there is only so much they can do given the confines of a CGI courtroom. It's also not entirely clear why actors of their profile are needed for this type of story, considering it's quite a low-concept kind of thing which could work just as well with up-and-coming actors. But yeah, it's alright. Fine as a slice of sci-fi fluff, Mercy is okay. just nothing special. Why this film has gone to cinemas is anyone's guess, as it has direct to Prime written all over it, but hey, those are the decisions made by the bigwigs. Either way, Mercy isn't as awful as some might suggest, it's just not great either. Had this been a 30-minute episode of a television show it would work far better, and I'm in no doubt it'll be better received when it does eventually land on streaming. Now streaming A Broken Bar The Wrecking Crew, 2026. And finally, new to Prime Video this week is the action comedy, The Wrecking Crew. Directed by Ángel Manuel Soto, the movie stars Jason Momoa and Dave Bautista, and follows the story of two brothers forced to reunite when trouble comes calling. In the movie, Johnny and James Hale are estranged half-brothers who haven't seen eye to eye in years. But when their father dies in a supposed hit-and-run, and goons come to Johnny's door, the pair have to put their differences to one side to uncover the truth about his death. Geez, is this a week for mid-level movies or what? Despite some well-choreographed action sequences, a few good gags, and decent performances from Momoa and Bautista, The Wrecking Crew is another so-so film which isn't awful, but it's nothing worth shouting about either. The film has the right ingredients for something special, and there is a welcome Lethal Weapon-style vibe throughout, but The Wrecking Crew fails to capitalize on its potential. This is largely because it's too long, the pacing is all over the place, and the story is missing zest. The pairing of Momoa and Bautista works well, and when the movie leans into scenes of spectacle there's fun to be had. But there are sections which slow the story down to a crawl. As such, you can't help but wish this was a little better. If you're a fan of Momoa and or Bautista, or you're after an okay action flick, there's some entertainment to be had, but it's not one to rush to see. Take it as you find it. Also out A Broken Bar recent release is not quite done yet. Want more movies? The above suggestions aren't enough? Well, here's what's also doing the rounds. Return to Silent Hill, 2026. The script is woeful, the acting is dire, and some of the leaps in logic are outstanding. Various parts of the film feel like cutscenes from a game, gaffer taped together, and the whole thing drags which is impressive for a movie which is only 106 minutes long. Cosmic Princess Kaguya, 2026. Boasting beautiful animation, adorable characters, and some cutesy tunes, Cosmic Princess Kaguya is a likable fantasy anime which is sure to be a hit with young Netflix audiences. The visuals are imaginative, the color palette is luscious, and the story has teen appeal. The Rip, 2026. The Rip is a captivating caper and one which is something of a triumph for Netflix. When it comes to crime thrillers and action movies, the streaming service often struggles to get it right, and that's being kind, but this time around it has hit the target and then some. 28 years later, The Bone Temple, 2026. Director Nia DaCosta picks up the baton from 28 years later director Danny Boyle and runs with it. The result is a movie which is equally as nerve-wracking, equally as insightful, and equally as compelling. Movie of the Week: A Broken Bar. It's a tricky one this week, as none of this week's big new releases really stand out, although The Big Fake is the best movie of the selection. So Broken Bar, I'm going to break from tradition and recommend that this week you go to the cinema and catch former Movie of the Week winner, 28 years later, The Bone Temple. Broken Bar. If you haven't watched it already, the film is fab, but simply isn't doing the box office numbers it should, which is a huge shame and puts the future of the series in a precarious position. So yeah, this week it's time to play catch up, and go see The Bone Temple horror preview, and that's your lot for this week. But before you go, you may wish to check out 2026 in horror, a preview of a few horror highlights coming to film and TV this year. From Scream 7 to Lee Cronin's The Mummy, there's plenty of horror coming down the pipeline. If you want to prepare yourself, this is the preview for you. Alex is a writer, editor, and blogger specializing in movies, TV, comics, retro toys, and general geekery. He is a championing voice in nerd content, an expert in pop culture, and a trusted movie critic who publishes new reviews on a weekly basis. After graduating with a degree in film television studies from the University of Derby in the UK, Alex went on to study journalism in Sheffield, before acquiring NCTJ accreditation. Prior to a career in blogging, Alex was a magazine editor, a senior copywriter, a features writer, and a freelancer. Thank you for stopping by at Say Stampede. To read this edition of Movie Reviews 2026, for more posts be sure to check out the recommended reads below. Advertisements published on January 28, 2026. 12 The combined testosterone flowing through Jason Momoa and Dave Bautista, the mega macho leads of the Wrecking Crew, would be enough to fuel the manosphere's masculinity crisis for decades. The pair put their personae and pectorals to work in the action comedy, playing beefy bickering half-brothers doling out juvenile jokes and hardcore violence in equal measure, though never skewing far enough in either direction to reach the lovable lunkheadedness of the Fast and Furious films, or the virtuosic brutality of a direct-to-video brawler. Instead, the Wrecking Crew casts about between genres like driftwood caught by the tide for 2 hours. The script cycles between family trauma drama, goofy Hawaiian noir, meathead romp, and wham-bang slugfest. The indecision at least showcases some consistency, though, in that each approach is equally dissatisfying. Directed by Ángel Manuel Soto, Blue Beetle, and written by Jonathan Tromper, showrunner of Momoa and Bautista. The Wrecking Crew pitches a familiar idea. Two burly boys of opposing temperament have to team up to solve a crime. Hijinks and a mounting body count ensue. But estranged siblings James, Bautista, and Johnny, Momoa, despite how they're introduced, are effectively the same. A buy one get one free at the Costco meat department. The Wrecking Crew may initially insist that James is a straightless Navy SEAL hard-ass teaching recruits in Hawaii and that Johnny is a drunken biker cop in Oklahoma. But when their dad is murdered, they reunite to figure out what happened and merge into a single stunted bad boy living through two bodies. From the too simple setup of the initial Crimea, their private eye father, whom neither have spoken to in years, sends Johnny a package right before he's run down by a van in the opening scene. The Wrecking Crew tries to stuff its plot with convolutions and runarounds, the kind of cluttering misdirection and ephemera that's usually hand-waved away by the cynical atmosphere and hangdog detectives of noir. Here, Johnny and James are the exact same kind of vanilla badass, bumbling through a mystery clear to everyone but them, and where each new character slots easily into a predetermined screenplay type. There's the local cop, Stephen Root, who serves as their surrogate lethal weapon captain. There's the shady businessman, Clay's bang with a weebish top-knot, and family friend politician, Tamara Morrison, obviously in cahoots. There's the comic relief tech nerd, Jacob Batalon, who desperately needs to escape this typecasting, and the brothers' wives, girlfriends, Morena Baccarin and Roy Amta Fox, who exist to alternately nag and fawn over the leads. Henchman fodder is supplied by the Yakuza and the Hawaiian mob. If this looks like a bullet list you scribbled down the hour before a big presentation about your Momoa Bautista team-up movie, that's representative of what it feels like watching The Wrecking Crew. The duo muscle through swaths of story with a tone that is clear only in its aggression, interlacing crime cliches and left-field emotional melodrama with dick-swinging stupidity. A cheese-grater moment out of Evil Dead Rise and a teeth-scattering pseudo-curb stomper matched by wit like "fuck you, Fat Jackie Chan." And oh look, it's Fat John Cena. It's the nice guys if the script got a Spy TV rewrite and the leads had been replaced by two big bags of gas station beef jerky. The butt rock score from Bobby Kurlick is, at least, fitting. Perhaps the most disappointing part of The Wrecking Crew is that both Momoa and Bautista have worked with and against type to charm before. Tromper's script gestures towards self-awareness, with every other side character commenting on the lead's undeniable dumb jock aura. And yet, though they have every opportunity to rebel against Thesa, and Bautista, at least, is ostensibly playing a by-the-book military mania, they fall into the stereotype without over-embracing it. They're playing stupid, but not stupid enough, and a too similar kind of stupid to generate any kind of driving friction between them. Their bickering is toothless, and their approaches to investigating Hawaii's underworld mostly involve highly telegraphed punching. Soto's set pieces are similarly underwhelming. Scenes of storming a compound and outrunning a helicopter are as derivative as yet another fight scene mimicking the Old Boy hallway. The Hawaiian setting, dueling brother premise, and egoless charisma of its leads, Both Bautista and Momoa made their superhero characters into enjoyably dense scene stealers, not to mention their abilities to get silly in kids' movies, offered plenty to set the Wrecking Crew apart, both from its brainless action contemporaries and its straight-to-streaming star vehicle peers. But outside of some local slang and sandy shooting locations, there's little that's memorably. Even the rancid vibes and intangible action aren't especially notable for a two-hander like this. It's rarely the case where a film would actually be improved by leaning into its worst impulses, but if the Wrecking Crew had gone full tank top cinema, it might have at least felt like its makers were having fun making a mess. Director, Ángel Manuel Soto. Writer, Jonathan Tropper. Starring, Dave Bautista, Jason Momoa, Claes Bang, Tamara Morrison, Jacob Batalon, Frankie Adams, Mavi, Stephen Root, Morena Baccarin, Lydia Peckham, Roy Imta Fox, Branscombe Richmond, Maya Keloa, Joshua Tuivavalogi. Release date, January 28, 2026, Amazon.